Welcome to Inspirational Transformational TV show. Amy Whitney here today with my very special guest, Sue London. Although I am the creator of Inspirational Transformational TV show, I've never actually looked up the words in the dictionary. If I did, I'm now certain that Sue London's name would be under both inspirational and transformational. Currently, Sue works as a radio show host. She's an author, she's a coach, she's a grandmother, a mother, an amazing wife, she's a lecturer. She has all these incredible skills and gifts. She fills the room with her bubbly personality and is a true delight to be around. And that's why the story that she shares today is even more heartwarming. The experiences that Sue has been through would bring many of us to our knees. It's with great pleasure and delight that I'm introducing you today to Sue London. Enjoy the show. Sue London, welcome to Inspirational Transformational. Thanks so much for joining me today.
I am so excited to be here.
Oh, I love it.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm just going to read the list of your professions because it is actually amazing how much you fit into a day. So you're a radio host, a Reiki master, a spiritual life coach, a motivational speaker, and you are an author.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, the thing about this list, when I read a list like this, I know that there's a story there because in order to do all of those professions, you need a certain depth. Therefore, you need life experience. And so that's why you're here today, to take us through your journey, really.
Okay.
Now, I've read that even as a child, you were shy, insecure, you had anxiety. Was that from birth?
Yeah. I was very no confidence, very, very shy. Like if the teacher would say, in attendance, raise your hand to say here, I couldn't do it. Like I'd get a stomach ache. I never had to do any talks or presentations in school because I would throw up on the teacher's desk. Just the idea of having to do it. So it got passed along throughout the years. Don't ask her to do it because she'll make a mess in your room. So it wasn't until I went through my divorce with my first husband that I thought, okay, I've got to get past this. And the word had got out what I was doing, and I was asked to go on a TV show. I thought, okay, I have to do this, and so I've got to get over this once and for all. So I went to Toastmasters, and that's where everything just opened up. I met Mr. Right, my future husband, and one of my speeches became a book. First an article, then a book, and then another book, and then a speaking career.
Oh my gosh. You have so many exciting things constantly happening. Like it's just so beautiful to listen to you speak. Now you mentioned slightly your first husband. Mm-hmm. You were married quite young, weren't you?
I got married when I was 21.
Yeah,
from high school.
And I know that a large part of your story is that you had Crohn's disease. Did you have that from your teen years or?
Yeah, I was having symptoms, but they didn't know. Doctors didn't know much about Crohn's disease then. And when they diagnosed me, then they looked back at my charts and said, oh my gosh, she had symptoms of this disease for years. So it didn't come out, they didn't diagnose it until my youngest daughter, my oldest daughter was 9 months old. And that's when after she was born, I lost like 60 pounds in less than 3 months. And I thought it was great because I'm losing the baby fat. And they were pretty, scared about that and said, we've got to do some tests. And they found out I had Crohn's disease, and it was within 3 months. I was having surgeries, and a lot of stuff pretty nasty came out of that.
And during this time, you're very young, a new baby, and can you describe your home life, like support from your husband, or?
Yeah, it was rough. I was 26 years old. It was May of 1989 when I was diagnosed. Here I had this 9-month-old baby girl, and I had a dog, Rocky. He was a little Shih Tzu, and he was such a gift from above. I got him 8 months before I was diagnosed with the disease, and he was a dog that was going to be put down because the owner couldn't keep him at a year old. And so when I heard that, gave him a home, and that dog literally was my savior. It was just, I would spend 3 hours at a time in the washroom. I'd have to take my little girl in the washroom and entertain her while I'm, both ends are going, I'm so sick. And, I'd bring the dog in, and like Peter Pan, how they had the dog, like Nanny looking after the kids.
Yes.
Well, that's what Rocky was like. I'd set some toys up for my little girl in there, and Rocky would entertain her and play with her and, keep her out of the cupboard. And I would just, be in there for 3 hours being sick. It was horrific. And, I'd want to go out and take her for a walk. A simple thing like a new mother wants to do. And I'd get down the driveway and I'd start throwing up. And I'd have to go back in the house. Spend, in and out of hospitals every week. And be dehydrated and, having reactions to medicine. And it was a terrible, terrible time. And, my husband was not around. It was stressful for him. And he started working more, and I found out years later that he did have a girlfriend over our marriage for 14 years of the 16. So that was, I guess, his way of coping with it. And so yeah, it was horrific. But I'm healed. It's all gone. So that's the good news.
That's the exciting part. So can you take us to that part of the story, because it was a number of years, you almost died. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I was given 30 minutes to live. My intestine burst in 1996. I had some funny feelings in my stomach area, and I went to the doctor, and they said, well, I had a torn muscle. And I thought, okay, you know what, that's fair, because we just moved into a new house. I've been pulling out a lot of trees and stuff like that in the backyard, so I thought that was possible. Then it was a couple days later, the pain got to a point where I couldn't breathe. I couldn't roll over. I couldn't, sit in a chair. So I went into the emerge, and while I was sitting in the waiting room, I was there for about 3 hours, and all of a sudden I just got tunnel vision, collapsed, and they took me in to discover my intestine had burst. And they said, oh my God, we were wrong on this, and, you don't have much longer to live. So who do you want to say goodbye to? And I'm thinking in my mind, oh my Lord, I've got kids, and oh my, how do you handle this? So then what happened, they rushed me into surgery, and I actually experienced a near-death experience. And, they say you go to the white light, and there's the tunnel. Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And I was at a point where, well, how could I be a good mom? And at this point, I had 2 little girls and a husband who's never around. He didn't even come and see me while I was in the hospital for all those months. So I'm thinking, okay, what kind of a person am I to give? How can I look after my kids? I can't take them for a walk. I was not in a good place at all. So when I went to that white light, here's this beautiful place of peace and love and just support. And I thought, oh, I love it. And I was really, honestly ready to cross over. And they knew who to send, and they sent my grandfather. And my grandfather stopped me, and he said, Susie, you need to go back. You have millions of people and animals you need to help. You need to help them heal. You need to go back. And that stayed with me forever. And this is what, is my inspiration to go into those scary moments and, go to Toastmasters and get over my fear of speaking in public. Now I have no problems with that. And now the disease is healed, and yeah, it's wonderful.
So from that near death, when you survived, is that when you made that internal shift, that commitment to not just live, but to thrive?
Yes.
Is that how it happened?
Yeah, it was just such an experience that I just can't explain. It really showed me there is much more for us, and we're here for a reason. What is our purpose? And, when you're told you have 30 minutes to live, and who do you want to say goodbye to? That was really an eye-opener for me. Because I will honestly tell you, years ago, I wasn't grateful for things in my life. I took everything for granted. I, would not eat properly. I wasn't exercising. And, having that experience really showed me, oh my gosh, we could be gone tomorrow. And so I really made that commitment that, I was here, like my grandfather said, I was there to help millions. So what did I have to do to get to that place of helping people? I had to clear my stuff, and I had to, be able to be in front of people and, just shine. So whatever I was led to do, I did. And I made a point of telling people, you know what, I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you. My kids, I'm always saying I love you. And it drives them nuts because they'll say, we know, Mom, we know. But, to me that's important because I want my kids to know that they are very loved and supported. And now I have a grandson and he's always saying, I know, Grandma, I know. So, that's literally life-changing for me, having that experience.
And was it learning how to love yourself first?
Big time.
Okay.
Big time.
That's the feeling I get. And
yeah.
Is that what, when you reflect back now, even in your childhood years, is that the missing piece?
Yeah. Yeah. My parents were emotionally abusive. And my mother as a child never hugged me, never said I love you. So I thought, well, there was something wrong with me. And my father had said, I'm an only child because we didn't want to have any more. So I thought, okay, well, if they're not having any more, what's wrong with me? And so there was no confidence, there was no self-esteem, and I didn't love myself because I didn't feel that from my parents. Right. And I thought, well, I was responsible for them not having more kids. And, kids think such untrue things, yes. Right? And so the first part of my healing was, I can remember a friend saying to me, you got to get in front of that mirror and you have to say, I love you, Sue. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. It took me 3 weeks of every time going into that bathroom. And you know how many times us girls go to the bathroom, right? And every time I'd go in the bathroom, I'd look in front of the mirror and I'd start to cry. I couldn't do it. And now, I can get in front and go, oh, I love you so much, and you're having a great hair day, and you're going to have such a wonderful day, and, my kids would just shake their head and say, my mom is so weird. But, now I can do it, and that was the shifting point for me, was to say, I love you, Sue, and, you're a great person, and you have a lot to give to people. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, so that's a first step.
And was that how you heal Crohn's disease? Was it like a metaphysical type issue? Is that how you look at the disease?
Well, it is definitely emotional.
Okay.
I've worked with over 7,000 people now with the disease.
Oh, wow.
And the common trait, and I will tell you honestly, I was one of them as well, I was the hugest worrier there was. I was so full of fear. I always worried about what was going to happen in the future. What about the what ifs? Suppose this happens. How could I have done something different in the past? I never went to my internal self and listened to my intuition. And I was fearful of everything, going out, being around people, no confidence. I didn't love myself. I wasn't eating properly. I was sabotaging myself, not exercising, in bad relationship, lots of stress in my marriage. And I wasn't telling people that. So, when you're holding all that in internally, if you look in Louise Hay book, You Can Heal Your Life, you look up Crohn's disease and it's fear. It's all about fear. And that was what I was totally full of. And once I cleared that fear, and then I started, the mindset with everything does happen in our life for a reason. And, if we're stuck in traffic, or we're late for something, there's a reason for that. Maybe it's saving us from being in a car accident. Or maybe we need to go somewhere and be somewhere to help someone. So I really changed my thinking. And when I changed the thinking, in that way, things were flowing for me. I wasn't stressed. I wasn't fearful. And, that was, a big change for me.
Now, let's get into the really interesting things that you're up to right now in your life.
Okay.
You've got a whole big list. Now, it must have been a slow progression, or how has it unfolded?
It's been interesting. I first started, I did my Reiki training because I wanted to learn how to do it for my kids and my pets, because part of my healing with the Crohn's disease was having Reiki treatments. So I took my level 1 Reiki, I took my level 2 Reiki, and I had clients, and they were staying longer after I worked on them. And they said, you're such an inspiration that, would you, can we have, coaching, or you should be speaking, or, you need to be doing more than just this one-on-one in your office. So that's when I thought, okay, well, I have to get over my fear of talking. And I went to Toastmasters, and that's where I met Mr. Right. And so I went to Toastmasters, and Ross was my mentor, and that was on 9/11, 2001. So It was such a change in so many ways that day. right? And so Ross, he made me get up and do a talk every meeting. I hated it. It was so hard, but it was the best thing for me. It was exactly what I needed. So when I was getting up and I was doing these talks, people were crying, and I thought, I'm doing a terrible job. They're crying. This is awful. So I was saying to him, like, maybe I need to say something different. He said, no, this is powerful, and you might want to one day look at it as a career speaking. I thought, oh no, right? And so then what happened, my third speech was speaking with sincerity. And I talked about how my dog Rocky helped me through all the challenges in my life. And at the time as I was giving this talk, I was also finding intuitively that I was preparing for his death. And that I felt like I was delivering his eulogy, and I was starting to cry as I was giving the talk. Well, there wasn't a dry eye in that Toastmaster meeting that night. And so I did the talk, and then what happened, when you fast forward a little bit, I did the TV show, the reason why I went to Toastmasters to begin with. Did that TV show, it was great. And then my third speech about Rocky, it got published in 3 countries, in Canada, United States, and England, in magazines. I think we're in like 50 or 60 magazines now with that article. And then that article then became a book, Rocky's Trip to the Hospital book. And then the bookstores, Chapters, and Kohl's here in Canada picked up the books, and I was going and doing book signings, and I'd bring one of their dogs in. We do pet therapy. And then I guess a newspaper then had me going into McMaster Children's Hospital, and I was doing pet therapy with the kids, and I was reading to them, reading my story, and telling them this is a friend of Rocky's, and that Rocky helped me, and now Molly or Willie's here to help you. So it was really a lot of change were happening with kids because of that mindset, just planting that seed. So then I was, doing these book signings and Chapters and Kohl's, and people were saying, well, these are great children's books, but where's your story? And I thought, I don't have a story. What are you talking about? And so then that's when I wrote my book, Soar Above It All. And no, I missed a book, didn't I? I did the children's book, Rocky's Trip to the Hospital, and then there was a day where the staff asked if I would go into the C ward. That's the ward where the kids are terminal and are not coming home. So I thought, okay, this has come to me for a reason, and I'm ready for it. It's come now, so I've got to do this. So the first room that I went to, it was with a 2.5-year-old little girl, and the little girl had cancer. And I walked in the room, and the little girl was crying, and I thought, oh my gosh, give me strength to be there to support this, this family in need right now. So I started reading Rocky's Trip to the Hospital. And I looked, the little girl started smiling, and the mom started crying. I thought, what's going on here, right? And so then that's when the mom said, my little girl had not smiled in 6 months. And this is what you've done for me. And so I thought, oh my gosh, thank you for this, opportunity. And I'm looking above, and I thought, thank you for the strength. You're getting me cry. I'm looking at you now.
I'm very sensitive.
We have to tell the listeners that you're crying here, right? And so what happened, I went out in that hall, I autographed the book, and I said to the mom, you know what, let me leave this book for you, that this will be a memory that you'll always hold. I went out in the hall, and I was crying my heart out, and Ross had to bring me our dog that was doing pet therapy with him in the lounge, and I hung on to the dog, and I had to go to 14 rooms after that like it. I thought, oh my gosh, how do I get through this, right? So we're in the elevator, and I said to Ross, we need to put something together. I have to have a book that's going to help kids stay strong, so that, when I'm not there, that it's going to help them to, get that positive thinking and heal their stuff. And later that morning, I went to bed, and 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, and I'm sitting on the bathroom floor, and I'm writing the next children's book, Rocky's Positive Thoughts coloring book. And I've had countless kids come up to me and share that, you're always a winner if you tried, or miracles do happen. These affirmations have helped them to heal their diseases. And on my 40th birthday, I'll never forget, I was over at McMaster Children's Hospital, and this little boy and his father were talking to Ross. I just come out of the C ward, and it was pretty rough. And the voice sounded familiar in the little boy, but I couldn't place him because he had hair. And this little boy's name was Josh, and I had spent time with him when he was having some challenges with cancer, and I had taken him through visualizations and spent some time with him. Well, he had come up, he heard I was there, and he shared that his cancer was in remission. And that his father said that to Josh, now here's a surprise for you, that the visualization that Sue took you through going to the beaches in Mexico, we are booked. We're leaving tomorrow for that trip that you had the visualizations for. So that was the best 40th birthday gift I've ever had, was the little boy told me his cancer went to remission because of the tools and techniques I shared with him. So, yeah, talk about life-changing, right?
Yes.
Like, it's just, every day is such a rewarding gift for me, right? And so then, I'm then in Coles and Chapters, and I'm doing talks, and people were asking for my story, and then I wrote Soar Above It All. And it, people started coming to me saying, will you coach me? Help me, to get to where you are today. So then I started doing spiritual life coaching and helping people to, connect with our loved ones on the other side, know that we're supported and loved, and, we can ask for what we need and we can manifest it. And you can change your ways by eating properly and not a bad diet with junk food and sugars and stuff like that. And, you got to honor yourself and value yourself and love yourself for those changes to happen. So then I was coaching people, and then, gosh, what happened next? Then I started working with John Assaraf and Jack Hanfield, Secret Teachers.
Okay.
And so when I was working with Jack, he said, okay, well, let's, what are your goals? I said, well, you know what, I just want to help people around the world. I want to help the people. I want to help animals cope and heal and move forward and have that life that, I have, that we all can create if you have the right knowledge. So then, be careful what you wish for. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call, and it was from a radio host, and she said she'd like to bring me on her internet show. And I thought, I don't know about this. It was technology again, and I had some issues with technology, and I wasn't comfortable with technology because I'm a work in progress, let's say, with technology, okay? Nice. And so, you understand what I'm saying? So what happened, Jack really kicked my butt and said, you have to do this. You put this out now. There's your growing moment, right? Yes. So I said, made the commitment I would go on her show. And she hadn't told me it's just simply call this number and we do it over the phone. And I thought I had to have my computer all up and have all this information up. And so I'll never forget how it was 2 minutes before we were to go on the live show. The screen was up with her show, and my screen on my computer, honest to God, it started having waves through it. Like, before cable, the old TV, how you get lines through it? Yes. Well, that's what my computer did. And I thought, oh, Lord, what's happening here? And so I said, this is what's happening. She goes, oh, don't worry, you don't even need to use your computer. So we start the show, and she asked me the first question, and I thought, okay, this is great, I'm talking, and I never heard from her again for half an hour of the show. And intuitively, I just kept hearing, just keep talking, Sue, just keep talking. So I thought, okay, I'll just keep talking, and so I'm talking, and I'm sharing my story, and then all of a sudden, we're 2 minute mark before the end of the show. She comes back on, and she said, well, thanks for being here, Sue. This has been wonderful. So I thought, oh my gosh, what kind of interview has this been? It's been crazy, I'm not used to an interview like this. And so then what happened, the show ended, and she phoned me, and she said, Sue, thank goodness for you. Thank goodness you don't know what was happening. She said, never has this happened before. My switchboard crashed, which didn't allow me to get onto the show. And you don't know this, but you ran my show. I thought, oh my gosh, thank goodness I didn't know that when I was doing the interview, right? Yes. And so then what happened, she said, hey, this is great. She says, you're even signed up as a host. And I said, I'm not going to be a radio host. I can't do that. She goes, no, you're natural at this. So I thought, oh no. So I'm back on the phone with Jack, and I said, you know what? This is what happened. And he said, well, you need to do this. And I said, I don't have time for this. I've got a lot of other things going on, and where do I fit this in? He said, no, you asked for this, and the universe is bringing you this. So I thought, okay. So then I started, connecting with my grandfather on the other side and all my angels. I said, okay, guys, y'all want me to do this? You have to bring me the guests. You got to make the time for me. You got to help this all happen. So I started my show January the 7th, 2009, and I never had to go after one guest. They all came to me just like I put out to ask for. And in April of this year, I got a phone call from the executive producer of the Transformation Talk Network. And they asked if I would consider becoming one of their hosts. That they really liked, what my show was about, who I was, and, what was happening as a result of my show. So again, I turned to my angels and said, okay, well, if this is right for me, show me a sign. And I did get a sign, and I started my first show was April the 21st. And it's every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the transformationtalkradio.com website. And it's also heard on WBLQ 1230 AM radio. That's out of Rhode Island, New York, and Connecticut. I now have 1 million listeners.
Congratulations. It's fabulous, by the way.
Thank you.
I really enjoy it.
We have a lot of fun. Sometimes I forget I'm on the show. But, I really want people to know, like, the real me, and, that if I can go through stuff, anybody can. And I each week will share a story, it's kind of fun. You put the smiles on faces and, give tools and techniques. So, yeah, so that's what's happening. And then as a result of being with the show just a couple weeks ago, I had a global book distributor call me, and they have picked up my book, Soar Above It All. And I'm now in the process of setting up events all across North America now.
That is so exciting. It is such an amazing book, I must say.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. And it's, when you read it, you think about what you're facing in your life, and it seems quite trivial, and compared to the journey you've been on, and it's just, it's so beautiful. And when I see the woman today sitting in front of the camera and think about what you've been through, I just think you're a hero.
Well, thank you. Well, sometimes we do things and we never know what will come out of it. And when I wrote Soar Above It All, it was really a healing journey for me, looking back. And I can remember writing the book, and at nighttime I was having nightmares, and there was a lot of healing happening just as I was writing the book. And I had a phone call from our local high school from a teacher who ran a co-op program. And he asked if I would consider bringing one of the co-op grade 12 students in because she had a dream to write a book. So I brought her in my office, and that we were at the point where we were doing the editing of the book. And so I said, okay, look it over, look for mistakes. And so she's reading the part where I talk about, I had this boyfriend when I was 16, and I thought that I could change him and help him to have a better life and get rid of that life he was involved with. And she's reading this, and she goes, oh my God, I'm dating a boy just like this. She says, you mean you can't change boys? I said, no, you can't change anybody. So she came in the next day, and she said, I dumped him. You'll be so proud of me, I dumped him. I thought, great, this is fantastic. I love to hear these kind of stories. Well, then what started happening was I started getting emails from people that after reading my story, they said they had planned suicides. And they said that when they read my journey, theirs was nothing comparable. And they said if I could go through what I did and be here today like this, they knew they could get through it. And they were sharing, what they'd gone through, and I got them the help they needed. And it was just, the stories are countless, what I hear. And it's just,
Do you have, I don't want to say a favorite, but a story from your show that has touched you in a way that you would be comfortable sharing today?
Story from being on my radio show?
Yeah.
The one that really stands out for me is I had a girl come on my show, and interestingly, she has the same birthday as me. Her birthday is November 23rd.
Right.
So, of course, I connected with her right away, right? And she's like my twin. We have both been through stuff. And her story was that her little girl, she had twins, and her little girl at 9 months old, she died. Her little girl was in daycare with her best friend. Her best friend ran a daycare program, and you would think you could trust your best friend, right? And what happened, the daycare provider, her friend, had an assistant. And this one day, Elizabeth Cookson is her name. Elizabeth woke up. She'd been up the night before with the baby. The baby was kind of fussy. She didn't get any sleep. Her husband had taken over at 4 o'clock in the morning just for her to get some sleep. She slept in, and she was running late, and she didn't kiss the kids goodbye. Her husband took the kids to daycare, which was not part of the regular routine. She didn't say goodbye, just, I gotta go, I'm gonna be late for this meeting. She went to this meeting, she goes to her office, and her boss said, didn't you get the message? The meeting was canceled. And while she's in that meeting, she looked beside her, and there was this black smoke coming up the wall. And she just had a feeling there was something not right with her little girl. And she's also like a psychic medium. And she just knew it was her little girl. There was something had happened to her little girl. And her husband phoned and said, you got to get to the hospital fast, that Nicola, something has happened. And she goes, I know, we've lost her. She just has come to see me. And so she shared the story that the daycare provider had given, the assistant had given the baby a blanket, and the baby smothered to death. And so here's Elizabeth having to forgive her best friend, who was a daycare provider, having to forgive this girl who gave her a blanket, and, you know, start loving them again. And, you know, there was a real process she had to go through. And the story, I'm interviewing her, I'm crying my heart out. I'm like, Elizabeth, just stop. Like at break time, I had to say, this is just, it's too much. I can't, I'm having trouble interviewing you. But you know, she's just such a hero, because when you talk to her, you know she has healed, she has forgiven, she's so full of love. She's now actually just signed on last week with our radio station. Wow. So she's going to be a host with us as well. So she's got a great career ahead of her, but that I'll never forget that. And I can remember us doing that interview, and I didn't care if I was going to be late. I would run to the door and I'd kiss my daughter, who's 18, and I'd say, you know, I just love you, hug, and she's like, Mama, who'd you interview now, you know? And so that was really, again, more for me to slow down and what's important, like that reminder, right? But I'll never forget that interview.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
And what's been your biggest inspiration through this?
My dog, Rocky. Mm-hmm. My best friend, Ross. My husband, my mentor from Toastmasters. The stories that, you know, what happens for Ross and I now, we get phone calls and we're asked to go on these trips. And we go on these trips, and it's literally like God is sending us to help people. So together we go on these trips. One story, I'll never forget it, and if I get choked up, be prepared, because it always happens. What happened was we got a phone call to go to Las Vegas. And I thought, you know what, Las Vegas is not my type of a place to go. And 6 months earlier, we were in Hawaii, so there's a real difference, right? But I just felt intuitively we had to go for some reason. And so I said, Ross, yeah, well, let's go. But for some reason, we had to take my youngest daughter. And at the time, she was 11. And everyone's saying, why would you take her? And then I'm hearing from Las Vegas, oh, yeah, it's a family place, not knowing, right? So we took her. So we're down Las Vegas thinking, what are we doing here? And so what happened about the fourth day, we were given tickets for a dinner and a live play. And we're staying in line in the line for the restaurant. And all of a sudden, my heart started feeling really, really heavy. And I started getting really kind of choked up. And I turned around and I saw this older man standing behind Ross. And I said to Ross, the reason why we're here is standing right behind you. I said, you have to ask this older man to join us for dinner. And so, you know, I get this look on my face. Like when I have that look, Ross knows, okay, this is the reason. And we work together, you know, whatever we have to do, right? And so he leaned back and he said to the man, you know, introduced himself and us. And, you know, the man said he was by himself. And so Ross said, why don't you join us for dinner? So the man sat down and joined us for dinner. And we're talking. And we were asking him, you know, what was his life like? And we were sharing our life here in Canada. And he was sharing that, you know, it was a pretty difficult time for him on this trip. And he was really grateful that we came along. Now, if anyone's been to Las Vegas, it's not a place where I wouldn't call it the most spiritual place. Like, you don't see people stopping and talking or hugging or stuff like that.
Sin City.
Yeah, exactly, right? So what happened, he was just so touched that we were taking time to talk with him. And he shared with us that he was on that trip fulfilling a dying wish of his wife. And he shared that his wife had died 3 months earlier, and that she said, you have to take the same trip we've always taken together for over 40 years. And so here he's on this trip, and he's, going to the same room, the same resort, and walking around and just flooding with memories. And he was having such a hard time with it. And so I thought, thank you for sending us on this trip to help this man. And so, again, I was getting this message, ask him what was his wish. So I said to him, if you ever had a wish, what would that wish be? And he said he really wished he could make his 11-year-old granddaughter a Sunday. But because she lived on the other coast, because of his age, and he was feeling too weak to take the trip, he just felt that would be something he'd never be able to do, and he really wished he could. So at that, our daughter, who was 11, got up, took his hand, and said, how about you make me that Sunday? Of course, we're getting so touched by this, that our daughter would do this, and we're so touched that, God and his angels and the universe were, sending us to help this man, and that we were in tuned enough to, and aware to say, yeah, we'll do this, going with the flow. And so we're just an emotional basket case watching this all unfold. And he came back, and we were talking some more, and then at the end, we said our goodbyes, and we gave him a hug. He cried like you cannot believe. He said it had been so long since somebody had hugged him, and just to be hugged was such a gift to him. And, I gave him a hug, and then he went to shake our daughter's hand. She gave him a hug. He cried even harder because he was really going back to this 11-year-old granddaughter, and that meant so much for him to hug our daughter. And then he went to shake my husband's hand, and Ross gave him a hug. He cried even harder, and he said, thank you so much for being here at this right place at the right time that I needed someone the most. And, we left the man, and we said, okay, we can go home now. We were there 3 more days, but we knew that that's why we were sent to help that man. And we have like 9-10 trips a year like this that happen. So it can be animals or it can be people. So that's, and Rocky has passed away, but he's always with me at all my events. So he's always with me. So.
That's so beautiful. And where to from here? Do you set intentions and work towards things, or are you just open to divine guidance?
I would say both. I feel intuitively, what's coming, and I do work towards, the goals, like I'll set goals. I know that, with having my radio show now and all the listeners that I have, so many people want to meet me now. And I know, the steps are all unfolding as they should. Like here I've got the book distribution now that's global. And now I'm in the process of setting up going all around North America to do speaking events and book signings. That's getting me out even more. What happened, like the story about how my radio show started, I was on a TV show on the Pet Network. Okay. And it was a show called Pet Central. And the first show that I was on, the producer came over, and we were doing here at our home with me and the dogs, and I was talking about how to do healing on pets. And she walks through the door, and she says, we have a little problem. We've never had this happen before. She says, we don't have a host for the show today. Do you think you could host and guest on the show today? And so I did it. Again, I always go with, when things happen, it's always the right time for me, and have that mindset. And I did it, and I ended up being brought back for 3 other shows. So she said to me if I ever wanted to host my own show, that she would definitely be a supporter for that, and she'd help me with that. So there's, stuff for me being in the TV world coming up. There's more with the radio. I have had people say, my book is going to become a movie, Soar Above It All. Stuff with that, and I am really, each day I wake up, I do hold that, that memory, that vision of my grandfather in the tunnel saying, Susie, you have millions of people and animals around the world you need to help. And I do feel that is, just going to get bigger for me. And I'm open, and, whatever I'm supposed to do will happen.
Sue, your final words of wisdom today.
My final words of wisdom. I would say, most definitely, be grateful for everything that happens in your life. Keep yourself always in the present moment. When you're in the present moment, you will find that you'll be more aware of doors opening and the opportunities coming to you. And really, that's what it's all about. So, you can create the life that you desire. I always say, if I can do it, anybody can. So go create the life that you desire. You're worth it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's fun.
Sue, thank you so much for your time today. You are such a delight to be around. You absolutely fill the space with so much love, so much positive energy. It's empowering just to be in your space. I must apologize for sniffling through parts of your interview. It really touched my heart. Your experiences, your stories that you shared just spoke straight to me, and I can just imagine the effect that you must have on those you work with. You're an absolute gift and a blessing, and I wish you much love.